Mahamka Kamyajet. Hello, how are you? My name is Frida Aswanya. I am a full-blood Yavapai from the Yavapai and Apache Nation in Metal Verde and Clarkdale and Rimrock, surrounding little reservations that aren't really connected. I am proud of myself and proud of the people that I come from. My Indian name is Tehanja. It was given to me by my father, who told me that I was to use my mother's Indian name when she was gone, and it means somebody that is always fixing things. Like at home, you see me, I sit for a minute and I'm up straightening up things right and left, and so I think the name fits me, and I like that name. It's given to me by my father, my mother's Indian name also, and I'm proud of the people that I come from, hard workers, all Yavapai, and from this area. It has been about 500 years since the Christians arrived in this part of the country where the Yavapai Indians lived, and they tried to Christianize the people whom they said were uncivilized and undisciplined, and they tried to change them into something that they knew nothing about. The Indians were told to give up their culture and their traditions. They were told the dances they did were not good, and that the language they had to get rid of and become more civilized. And this did not work too well with the Indians. They wondered what were they to become. They were Indians always, and they wanted to stay Indian, but they were told this was not right. So they were to change into someone completely different. And as a result, what happened was that there was problems for the Indians way back then, which I believe transcends to this century today, and what causes a lot of problems for the Indian people. The Indians have lost their self-esteem a lot, and they have turned to alcohol and drugs, which has almost destroyed the Indian nation. And it seems to continue with this modern day because of the lack of self-esteem which everybody needs. They need to feel proud of themselves and their ancestors, and move on from there, instead of falling into the side, into this alcohol problem, which is so much in the Indian community today, not only with the people of the parental age, but their children also. In the early days, the Indian children were placed in foster homes, and it was found that 85% of the Indian children were placed in non-Indian homes. And the tribal people felt that the Indian children needed to be with their Indian families because of their culture and the language, which they were not being taught in non-Indian homes. And there was a request to the government to place more children with the Indian families, so the 1978 Indian Child Welfare Act was passed to keep the Indian children in Indian homes. And this was more generally accepted by the Indian people because of the loss of the culture. Otherwise, the children were not learning their culture, their heritage, It is important to keep that up, otherwise the children would grow up not knowing who they were, and there was a loss of identity, not knowing who their ancestors were. So this act was passed in 1978. Today's youth are a result of the casino boomers, and they are spiritually lost youth that really have no claim on the past history of the Indian people, and they say in their own words that they are a lost people and that they hate being in this century today because the Indians are not recognized, and they had to come through so much, and we're just kind of like a lost people. And that's the way the youth feel today. And as a result, there's a lot of the alcohol and drug use, as I said. And they have a lot of suicides nowadays in the Indian communities all over the country because they feel that they're lost, they have no hope for a future. They think about the land, that this whole country that was ours at one time, and now it is being taken away, and a lot of other people are moving into this country, and they feel it's all taken away from them, and they've lost something, and they don't feel they are worth anything nowadays. And as a result, there are a lot of suicides among the Native American youth. And this is a very sad thing for me to think that they feel hopeless, that they can't advance and be somebody. Like I said, they say, I'm just an Indian, what am I going to become? You know, I have no mentors, I have no one to look up to, and that's the way they feel. Whereas in my generation, we had our ancestors, we had our history, we had our traditions, and these youth, they don't have that, and they are a kind of a lost generation. And as a result of suicides and the loss of retaining their Indian culture, they really do not have the identity there as to who they are. And it is really a sad situation for them. There's one thing a lot of people don't know is that at one time the Indians were given away and sold as slaves, and their stories have been told and put down in history. And more recently, the people, I don't know whether it was because the government wanted it that way, or if it was just the families that gave away their children to non-tribal members, and the kids were taken far away and they didn't know which tribe they belonged to. Now, I've worked with a lot of those people, and they're trying to come back into the Indian tribes and belong somewhere because they have this feeling they don't know who they are. They want to belong somewhere, but the Indian tribes are not taking them back, even though it's not a fault of their own that they were taken away and raised somewhere else. They do want to come back to the Indian nations and belong somewhere. And this is really a sad story of Indians trying to come back, and the tribes won't accept them into their nations, and they're kind of lost people like the other ones involved in drugs and alcohol. And the answer to all this is I really don't know. I feel sorry for so many of these people, but what we need to have a lot of work done. We need social workers or mental health workers to work with these people to make them realize that They are somebody, they do count and they are important. They need to look ahead to the future and raise their children as proud people and not look down on themselves. We are important to the Creator who made us and put us on this continent, which is a beautiful place to live in, which He cared enough to put us on. I know that the Yavapai Indians have come through a lot of heartache when the land was taken over, and they've been through the massacres of the tribe, and they've been through a separation from their children. The children were taken away to boarding schools and taught not to learn the language or the culture or anything. The parents lost their parental guidance, and it was a very hard time. The Indians were they were given poison food at times to try to get rid of them, and they were afraid of the new people that had come over and taken over the country. But somehow the Yavapai continued to survive. They were the survivors who did all their best to keep the tribe going, and although few in number, the Yavapai survived that period. And today we are still going, and our children, though, have suffered and gone through so much that they have problems with the respect for themselves and their tribal people. They feel that we are so unworthy, as we were taught that we were not a worthy people, and it's been hard on them. They have turned to alcohol and drugs, most of them, and have not tried to use the education monies that is there for them to advance their people, and they're going through a hard time. Even today, we have a lot of suicides among the young people, and they are in a sad state, especially on my reservation, and I feel a terrible loss for them. And when people ask me, you know, are the Yavapai or the Indians addicted to alcohol? Well, I don't think so. I think that we can make a way, as I did myself. I had no one, but I made it through. I did not turn to alcohol, drugs. I do not even smoke. And I feel that other kids could just do the same thing. They can be strong. They do need mentors. They do need programs to show them